at it with another episode of Tech on Demand brought to you by the fine folks at Grower Talks magazine. If you don't receive Grower Talks and Green Profit every month, head over to growertalks.com and subscribe. The magazine has been a pillar of the industry for more than 75 years. It's about time you join the club. And speaking of subscribing, be sure to subscribe to the Tech on Demand podcast on your favorite app. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, YouTube, and more. If you have an extra minute to leave us a positive review or comment, that would be awesome. Every little bit helps our algorithms and allows us to reach more greenhouse professionals. I'm your host, Bill Calkins, and when I planned this episode, I had a goal in mind: to learn about how the vegetative side of our industry evolved through the eyes of someone who was in the game early and in a big way. My guest, Mike Gooder, the owner of Plantpeddler in Cresco, Iowa, was a rooting station before it was cool. I was hoping to learn how and why he took such a big risk early on, building greenhouses and infrastructure to support production of vegetative young plants before the market was as proven as it is today. We definitely got into that story, and I learned a lot. I've known Mike a long time, and although I assumed our conversation would veer off the young plant path down a different road at some point, I was not expecting to spend about half the episode talking about how amazing floriculture is and how we need to develop messaging and tell this story far and wide in order to attract fresh, new talent to the industry. We discussed the importance of connection, networking, partnerships, relationships, and how Mike's industry involvement and leadership over more than 40 years has opened doors for his business that he never imagined back when he and Rachel bought the greenhouse in 1980. You have to listen all the way to the end of this episode because there's so much good information shared. It's really an inspiring conversation. Before we get started, let me run through Mike's bio real quick. He's president and co-owner of Plantpeddler, located in Cresco, Iowa, along with his wife Rachel. They've been in business since 1980, with their son John joining in 2014. Plantpeddler's Young Plant Division is a major propagator of vegetative genetics, with industry leadership in begonias. The wholesale division focuses on premium retail-ready products from spring through Christmas. Founded in retail, Plantpeddler opened a new retail operation in the fall of 2025. Mike's a graduate in horticulture from Iowa State University, involved in several industry groups, including serving as a board of director for American Hort. He's a recipient of the National Horticulture Leadership Award and speaks on a wide range of horticultural and business topics regionally and nationally. Oh, and if you're listening to this in real time, mark your calendar and save the date for Plantpeddler's open house, trials, and feast at the farm on August 6th and 7th. You can find information at plantpeddler.com. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Good morning, Bill. Really looking forward to a conversation with you. We've been friends for quite a few years, and I was quite honored when you said we should do a podcast. So I look forward to this.
It's going to be great, and I am also honored to have you as a guest. And before we start talking about your business and the evolution of young plant and liner production and the topics that we have on tap, the Cultivate event is only a few days away as we record this, and I'm just wondering, how crazy are things at your greenhouse right now as you guys get packed up for the show? And you got to be wrapping up mums and loaded up with poinsettias too, right?
Yep. We are definitely in cultivate mode as far as the key group that goes. There's 8 of us that go in. So that group of 8 has each of their own little projects within the project of getting ready. So my son, John, and Adam are in charge of the booth and getting everything ready booth-wise. Stacy and Kimberly are really getting all the promotional materials and marketing materials ready. I sit on the sidelines and get to watch. But look forward to the 12-hour drive from Cresco to Columbus. We get to do it every year. It's the same basic gang of us that are in the F-150 pickup with the 12-hour trip out. So we leave at 4 a.m. on Friday. Everybody's getting anxious to go. So it's a big deal at Plantpeddler. We love going to cultivate.
Awesome. Well, it'll be great to see you there. And I know this is one of the events that fires our industry up. So hopefully, I feel like people had a pretty good spring. So I think it'll be a good show. I tend to think the attitude's going to be pretty positive. You think so?
Well, I was on with one of the vendor partners of ours yesterday, and we were looking at the floor plan at the show, just scoping out where each of us are at so we can get together. And it looks like the trade show is completely sold out. If not, It's really close. I think the biggest trade show we've had, and obviously being a former board member, it makes me super proud. This show just continues to get stronger, becomes more international in its flavor. And it's like the great family reunion. I mean, I think the coolest part for me is this will be my 45th year 46th, I think, cultivate. Yeah, 46th cultivate, short of the 1 year for COVID when we weren't in attendance at Columbus. And I love the fact that when you get there, it's like all your buddies are there and you get to hang out for at least a half a week and enjoy everybody's company and networking and all the things that go on. So I look forward to it totally every year.
Definitely, definitely. Well, 4 a.m. Can't on Friday can't come soon enough, right?
Yeah, there you go.
All right. So we should probably get into the meat of the episode because I know we are both talkers and we're going to need to stay on track. So this isn't like a 2-hour podcast. All right. Let's see. So you just said 46 years at Cultivate. I'm doing the math. Plantpeddler was founded around 1980. So you've been going since you guys were founded. Tell me a little bit about the early days and maybe what your crop mix in the business looked like at the beginning. And then I guess like in general, what were you growing and selling and who were you guys selling it to?
Yeah. So actually, when I met Rachel at Iowa State, she was on the golf team, lead number one golfer for the Iowa State women's team.
Okay.
And we looked at going into turf and realized that in turf, you have 100 bosses, most of them with blue hair or gray hair and telling you how to grow grass. It's like I came from an entrepreneurial family, not in horticulture. And so we started looking at a greenhouse opportunity. I came back to where I worked in high school and college here in Cresco and showed the owner of the contract the place we were going to buy. And he said, no, if you're buying a place, you're going to buy this place. That was in the winter of 1980. Rachel went to design floral school. You're coming back to your hometown of 4,000 people or less. And it was like, we can't start a business unless we're married. So we got married June 20th and we took over June 28th. So for all but 8 days of our marriage, we've had a 3-way marriage with the greenhouse.
That's
and
crazy.
Literally sometimes the greenhouse has won more arguments than Rachel has in that 46 years. We're the third generation. It started in 1890, so it's one of the oldest greenhouses. It might be the oldest operational greenhouse in the state right now. We still have one of the original 1890 cypress greenhouses still growing crops. So I think
I've been in it. It's like really low ceiling. Was it like a rose house or what was it?
Well, we grew cuts back then. So some of the first crops we grew, now you have to understand, these were on old redwood benches with lap glass that was all of every size and randomness. We filled the benches with hay and then fresh cow manure from the livestock yards just down the street. And so it was a layer of straw, a layer of manure, and then field soil. And then we worked in a little peat moss, grew one rotation of either cut mums, carnations, stock was some of our first crops, but it was mostly all cut driven. And more than once I fell through the benches with a wheelbarrow of black dirt and laid in the cow manure, wondering what the hell was I doing, right? My father, being the businessman he was, says, you're not going to change anything for the first year, but then you can do whatever you want. And we went to growing cuts in pots, which we did for a number of years. I love growing cuts. But back then, it was mostly out the front door. We started a second retail in 1984 in Decorah. We ran that for 20 years and sold it when we had an opportunity to put our resources more back into Cresco with the divisions that we've developed. But yeah, it was interesting. You learned a lot during those early years. You come out of college and you really don't know anything until you actually do it. So there's a lot of early education. But we became very good growers at the crops that we produced, and it just continued to evolve. And in 1984, when we opened a Decorah store, we built our first phase, and that's when we also started the wholesale division.
Okay. So you were not wholesale prior to that. Like you weren't supplying other florists or anything. You were selling it out, like you said, and selling it out the front door.
Yeah, we had one or two small grocery stores in the area that bought a little bit of spring bedding from us, but basically everything going through the front door. Okay. We were 100% retail, basically.
Okay. Huh. And you're still retail to this day.
Our roots are in retail. I think that, some of the most successful operations, I feel, in our industry are those people that can retail it. Grower retailing is still one of the most lucrative parts of the industry. We came to understand because of where we sit, right? There's less than 4,000 in this town. There's less than 10,000 in the county. We're very rural. That plants sold by plants, people buy plants. And so we knew that if we were going to grow a company, we had to start reaching major markets. And so that really what led us down the path of getting into wholesale and, of course, evolving the company over time.
Okay. All right. And that's cool. And I want to talk a little bit about that evolution, but I also love hearing company history. That is so, so cool. So let's fast forward a little bit into the 90s. And as we were preparing for this, we were talking about how quick the industry was evolving during those days. Really, everything was changing from the genetics and the inputs to who was dominating the retail side of the industry or who was emerging, and then the supply chain. And some of those dominant retailers have come and gone, and the segments have sort of grown and shrunk in terms of importance. But what did that evolution during that period of time look like for you guys? And when did Plantpeddler start exploring the vegetative inputs and all those relationships with breeding companies that really drove your growth, from what I understand, in the early 2000s?
Yeah, but when you look at that evolution of the 90s, that was really dynamic time for the industry. We were coming off of the foliage boom. So, in the 80s, we really saw this boom in foliage. I think during that same period, grocery really found plants. Right up to that point, when you wanted to buy plants, you typically had to go to a flower shop or a greenhouse retailer. But at that point in the late 80s and early 90s, grocery really found a niche in plant material. And that was where we were headed. We've always believed grocery, and when you look at trends, who's the primary shoppers for live products that we produce, it's primarily a female audience. And not trying to be derogatory in any way, but a lot of women go to the grocery store and shop.
Yeah.
So, it was a convenience item, and that really drove the growth. And blooming plants blew up during that period. And that was our strength. We were blooming plant growers. Our average goal is at least 20 different blooming products a week. So it's 50 weeks pop mums. We worked a ton with Yoder on azaleas and hibiscus and roses, and we love growing cycas. But one of the crops that we grew a lot of that we couldn't find a good input for was begonias. And Hamas begonias back then, Mickelson had a multi-shoot that was being propagated from leaves. So there's a couple other providers in the market, but a very inconsistent supply chain, and especially Hamas begonias. So somewhere around, I think it was 2019, I made my way over to the IPM show. Might have been 2018 with some of the folks from Nexus, Jeff Warshauer being the primary, and got my eyes opened up to what was available in the European market, especially in what became the core of the company, Hamas begonias. In 1998, we also started a project called PP 2000. We saw the writing on the wall because what would have been a grocery-dominated market for live plants and blooming plants is when Walmart and other box stores started getting into the industry and really pounded the small retail floral. They took away Christmas, and they took away Easter, and they took away peak holidays. And for those small mom and pop flower shops, a lot of their income moved to the mass, to the box.
Yeah.
So it migrated to grocery, and then it really migrated heavy when the box stores came into the industry. So we knew that if we were going to survive and our core customer was under duress, small grocery and small retail floral, we had to do some zigging. And from that PP 2000 project, we isolated the young plant side, especially begonia production, because nobody in the States was doing it well.
Okay.
That led to the chase. Go chasing genetics. Got hooked up with a guy, Marinus Beevelander. Beevelander was most known for marble star point setup, but also he was one of the three partners in the BBA, the Begonia Breeders Association. And we were over getting trained by Marinus on how to produce European-style Himalayas really cuttings, and we were going to buy cuttings from Marinus. And he said, good news, bad news. Bad news, you can't buy cuttings from me. Good news is that I have a new partner that bought my BBA rights, Duman in Germany, and they want to talk.
Okay.
That led us to Rheinberg, Germany, and meeting with the Duman family, forging a relationship that had us run Duman USA, and really was the start of Duman's success in the USA and North American market. So that was really the change for us as a company, because we were chasing begonias and ended up in our lap became the Duman Project, which launched us into the young plant side of the business and building our Plantpeddler young plant facility and the evolution of where we came to. So, it was a very rapidly changing era for the industry, because at the same time that this dynamic was going on, big changes were happening on the vegetative side of the industry.
Right. Well, okay, so when I think about that, and you talk about chasing genetics, and you've already talked about building some of those early relationships and how it got you guys into the business of young plant production, was there a point in time then that you considered supplying the mass market? You considered being a big box grower supplier, because that market was big? I'm sure you guys had an opportunity being sort of centrally located to serve. big box?
Yeah, we definitely we were approached several times during those periods on various projects. I don't know what part of me, Bill, has always been driven more by the middle market
Hmm.
and in the diversity in market. I guess part of it, and I've had plenty of friends that have served that market.
Yeah.
I would like to have balanced market. When you look at what we're about a very balanced company and what we do. Uh,
Okay.
and mitigation of risk, I think one of the most important parts being successful in our industry, it doesn't matter from what aspect, but risk management is always
Mm,
a big part. And for me, from a market development standpoint, I'm always looking at risk management, making sure we have diversity in what we do. And I
yeah.
think that's probably what kept me out of going down the route of the box and being dictated to. I don't want to say that that's necessarily the case, but
Right.
typically you lose a lot of independence when you're in that world.
Hmm.
We're quite the opposite. We, you know, as a company, we like to be very diverse. We like challenging things. We like creating new and different
Yeah.
and value added products that other growers don't create.
Okay. Yeah, you do like challenging things. Begonias, poinsettias, like you guys aren't going after the easiest crops. All right. So
Always
I
got to do it.
Yeah, right. No, it's true. It's true. And when you get good at it, I think that's where you can really build a position in the market. But all right, I want to dig into this whole kind of emergence of vegetative inputs, URCs and liners, because I think it's weird to me to think that it's only been about 3 decades since that side of the industry has really become such a huge portion of overall horticulture sales. I mean, has really become professionalized. And I was thinking back, and I sort of got into doing this in the industry. I was working at a garden center and stuff prior, but in about 2000. So I remember your open houses when you guys started, where you were doing the Doom and USA and Red Fox stuff. And it seems like just yesterday, but it's actually almost 30 years ago. And that's crazy. But what are some of the key points on the timeline that you think launched vegetative into the position it's in today?
Well, and it's interesting that when you think back about it. When I was going through Iowa State, Dr. Dick Gladden said that there's no future in vegetatively propagated plants. He forgot about one important fact. It's called royalties.
Yeah.
And the
Okay.
ability for us to create unique varieties and patent them and clone them is really part of what evolved and changed the industry, because in the seed world, right, there's nothing patentable. You're only creating the seed. Obviously, there's a lot of flexibility with seed because you don't have to maintain stock and do all the things you do on the vegetative side, but there's not nearly the stream of revenue that's created by vegetative cutting. And some of the very first innovators, I think obviously back then we were already doing stock in mums. Mums
Yeah.
have been stock, one of the oldest stock plants. And so we had a model in what was going on in mums. I think Ogilvy and Fisher and PAC and the group that really developed CVI geraniums
Hmm.
and we came to clean stock really kind of did one of the hard sets that set the stage for vegetative production, because clean stock was one of the critical pieces in a vegetative world. If we didn't have clean stock production and virus index plants and the ability to build from TC, so that was all evolving at the same time. And
Is
some
that why
innovative
Dick
breeding.
Gladden said there's no future in vegetative? Is it because of that, the danger in the supply chain?
Yeah, we didn't have that understanding that we could
Mm,
produce super clean plants, right? That we
okay.
produce super elite stock plants. I mean, that was a dynamic we all didn't understand until really CVI geraniums was probably one of the critical pieces that changed that. And then you had some innovative breeding companies. One that really did as much as anyone to create the whole momentum was Suntory.
Yeah.
They oftentimes do not get the respect. I have tons of respect for Suntory because vegetative petunias, verbena, calicoa, all came out of the oven and kitchen at Suntory. And so
Hmm.
they helped, support the rise of PW and Kinsler, especially from Germany. And I think a Nova plant in Costa Rica was one of the earliest farms, and Kinsler being the PW partner in Europe really, really built a lot of what became kind of the offshore. Eckes at the same time building offshore production in Poinsettia was a key piece. So you kind of had this during that period of the 90s and early 2000s is when this whole development of offshore was going super fast. It was
Yeah.
just, it was crazy how that dynamic was changing the industry Who would have thought that when you could do a petunia from seed, that we all would produce a majority of the petunias now from vegetative cuttings?
Hmm.
It doesn't make sense. And there's some, great advancements still going on in seed. When you look at the leading seed companies, Pan American being probably one of the key leaders, we continue to innovate with seed, but vegetative, because of those reasons, has really driven the growth of the industry. And we've also, because of it, been able to deliver a better product to the consumer. When you look at the diversity that we've been able to create through vegetative cuttings and clones and the whole process that we go through, we have colors, we have dynamics, we have garden performance, we have so many things that we've created through the use and application and sterility of plants, so that we have plants that perform better, flower longer. All that has come together
Hmm.
and really changed and revolutionized the industry over these last couple decades.
And I think also driving the value of plants up, right? Because I mean, you could charge more for a big vegetative annual. I don't know. I think there's got to be something to that too. It's just the value proposition in the mind of the consumer is has been raised with vegetative. Not that there aren't awesome seed genetics that make a super premium plant, but it looks a lot different to walk into a garden center today than it did to walk into a garden center in 1986.
You're so on target with that statement, because that's what it has done. It's allowed growers to make better margins. And I think that's the important part, because not only did we raise the bar on what we offered to the public, the gardening consumer, but we also allow growers to grow better crops faster with clean culture. And if everybody follows clean protocol, you have very few losses from vegetative that we often saw with seed produced, varieties, because the disease resistance process that we go through with good breeding and the screening process that plants go through, whether you're talking about screening for pest diseases, pH tolerance, all the things that go on with good breeding and the steps that are in process, I think just continues to make it not only better for the consumer, but growers have a distinct advantage over where we were 30 years ago in culture. So it has raised the bar in both what we can charge for plant material and our expectations for profitability.
That's true. No, I think that's true. Well, thanks for helping me understand that, because there are so many pieces of that puzzle that did drive that growth that happened so quickly. All right, let's get back to Plantpeddler for a little bit. So describe your business. So we heard about how you guys started and some of the evolution and movement into young plant production, but describe the business now in 2026. What are your core products? What markets do you serve? And what are some of the really exciting ideas or ventures you guys have taken on in the past couple of years?
Yeah. Well, the cool part about the company is that we continue to evolve. I think you only have two options in business. Either you're going forward or you're going backwards. And I've always been a believer that we have to press forward. And so that means continual investment of what we are as a company, investment in the people, investment in our systems, and investment in our product lines. Probably the most recent addition to the company was, we started in retail back in 1980, but we just dropped several $1 million on a new retail facility in a town of less than 4,000 people. So we probably did a little bit of an overbuild, but it's also a statement to the community that we have been a part of multiple generations. For me, fifth generation homeboy. Part of it's our position in the industry. People understand that we believe in the industry and that we support it and that we can prove that a retail makes sense. It's still roughly 5% of what we do is retail. We expect that number to grow. We've had we opened soft opening last fall, right before the Christmas holiday. We really had a good opportunity to push it this spring. It's outperformed what we were projecting. So we're very proud. And I'm super proud to have my existing crew. Joe Waka has been with us longer than we've owned the company, and Terry Brunner. But my daughter-in-law, Molly, has taken over the lead of the company, of the retail division. And so they're really hammering and doing fun stuff.
That's cool.
We continue to grow the young plant side of the company. Right now, over 50% of what we do is young plant production. That number continues to grow, and that is our core focus. In the gaps between the wholesale division, which accounts to like 42% or so of what we do now, is still focused on key markets of grocery and independent. So we do hardware, we do grocery, We do traditional garden center and floral. So a lot of diversity within that, but it's really three well-defined visions. But the overall objective of the company is to always look at what are the challenging crops, what are things our competitors have a hard time creating, growing, building. We try to innovate in our product forms. So we're constantly looking at taking what is a commodity and value adding it. I mean, I think the classic example of us is, why would you paint somewhere around 50 or 60% of your poinsettia crop?
Right.
Why? Because we make more money painting a poinsettia than selling it as a commodity.
That's awesome.
So same thing as, we talked a little bit earlier, taking on the challenging crops like begonias and poinsettias and really becoming the best at it, right? Don't settle for being just a producer. Try to bring to your grower customers a product that excels for them. And that's a commitment. We did the same thing with multi-liners through what we've done from a robotics and protocol standpoint. So we're constantly looking at what is our niche? How do we define ourselves within that niche? We really work hard as a team of people to question everything we do. We constantly ask ourselves, what can we do better? What can we do to improve product? What can we do to improve performance? What can we do to ensure the success of our customer? Because at the end of the day, the gardening public that buys a Plantpeddler product, whether you buy a finished product from my retail store, whether you buy it wholesale from us, or you create your own finished product from a liner produced by Plantpeddler, ultimately, consumer success drives Plantpeddler's success. That has been the foundation of the company since we started. We believe that thoroughly, that no matter where you buy in our chain, I mean, it's funny because at our local grocery store in Cresco, one of my customers has product in it with Plantpeddler's tag on it, and it better look good because it has our name on it, because they're using a Plantpeddler liner to create it. So that value chain of making sure that we do everything possible to create the very best success, ultimately for the gardening consumer, is where the company finds its advantage in the marketplace.
No, I love that. And that I like the don't settle mentality. I think that, so if you think about, like, to me, you guys are very aggressive at going after new opportunities. Are you just as aggressive at sort of cutting underperforming segments, or like over your history, have you like fired product lines as often as you've taken them on?
Yeah, if you look at it from a young plant standpoint, that's probably the easiest one to use as an example of what we believe in, right? We have access to the best breeders in the world. I mean, short of the ball flower plant product line and PW, we have basically the full repertoire. So thousands of varieties. We narrow it down to what we feel best. And how do we do that process? One is we believe thoroughly in working in partnership with our breeders to know their best varieties, the varieties that perform at stock at the farm. Then it's, testing in our greenhouses to ensure that, one, we put roots on them, but two, that they are great performing varieties in greenhouse. And then it's a commitment to trial gardens and evaluating the genetics. And through that, you have a very curated collection that allows for best performance. Now, obviously, we're testing in the Midwest, so you have to be careful to make sure that those recommendations were more universally across the country. But we know that by working in conjunction with breeding partners and farms and in our processes that we developed, that we can help ensure that success. And that's when you fire varieties. I think one of the most important things that I've learned through the years is that there is variety pollution, and that having the best concise set of genetics ensures everyone's success, starting with the gardener all the way back up to the producer. And the same thing is true on our finished plant side of the company. We are forever changing product mix and evolving that product mix and trying to bring in some new innovation. I mean, there's things that have been in the market that we all just say go to, and we always question. When I say we question everything, we definitely question on the finished plant side what we're doing and are we offering the best stuff to the market.
Cool. No, I think that's good, and I think that our listeners should take that advice, because sometimes I think we hang on to things a little bit too long, but that's a different topic for a different podcast. Okay, so I've really always been impressed with, listening to you talk at conferences, sometimes when we talk one-on-one, just how you run your business. And you've just mentioned, like, throughout this whole episode, some of these relationships. You were just talking about relationships with breeding companies and how that's such a critical part of your success and really has been since day one. Talk a little bit about how you developed your skills in relationship building and how some of these industry relationships have led to unexpected or really, I guess, powerful or tremendous outcomes.
Yeah, it's funny because even though we're in the plant industry, it's really not about plants.
Hmm.
The success that we've been able to create has really been about the people that we have had interaction with, that we've partnered with, build relationships through the years. I know you did a podcast fairly recently with Jim Reardon as an example
Yeah.
at Truly Biotherm.
Yeah.
We were one of their first customers in 1984, and through good times and bad, just like a marriage, that relationship has withstood. And I think every piece of equipment with all of our facilities, including the newest retail, has a Biotherm True Leaf sticker on it.
Yeah.
So and what's the value of those long-term relationships? When you are in need, you can take advantage of those friendships, right? I mean, a good friendship is bilateral, and for us, it definitely works both ways. We're here to support our key vendors, and in the same way, we need their support to be successful. I've always told my staff and people around me, we are like as a greenhouse owner, especially in rural Northeast Iowa, you are on an island by yourself, right?
Yeah.
So you have to figure out how you can be self-sufficient to sustain. And in today's world with internet and Amazon overnight, it's become easier. But when we first started, man, we were really on an island by ourselves. And so those key vendor relationships that we built were so important when we were in need that we could lean on some people. And so when we look at our long-term growth strategy, it's been pick the best partner for whatever aspect of the business we're in. That can be a new partner. We even have what we call preferred non-vendor status, meaning they're the next one on the list, so that we're still building a relationship. Though we may not buy from you, we plan to at some point. We want to build a relationship with you. And for us, it's never about money. I rarely, if ever, you can ask people that know me, have I told the vendors, like, if I don't get your best price, I'm going to go to your competition. That's
Right.
not what we expect, because of our relationship with our vendor partners, that we're going to get a fair price. But we also know that they need to make a living. They need to make a profit. If they're going to be supporting us for the long haul, and if every time they turn around, we're beating them up for the best price, then when it comes to our need, they're going to say, I can't afford to do business with Plantpeddler, or I'm going to go out of business because I'm not making money. So I think one of the times that we oftentimes get caught up with thinking that it's all about price. In reality, it has nothing to do with price. It has a lot to do, when you're in a very niche form of agriculture that we're in, to having strong relationships. And those relationships should be bilateral, and they should go top to bottom. Everything that you are, because we're driven by supply chain, materials to build our greenhouses, maintain our greenhouses, live inputs, plastics, media, all the things we need, we are completely reliant on outside sources. Other than the sunlight gifted to us by God and the water coming out of the hose, almost everything else that we do in our industry is dependent on vendor relationships. And so building those long-term strong relationships with people that support you, that's your key. And especially if you're a startup, there's so much knowledge that you can gain for free, and shared information between other growers, and building those friendships, relationships. For me, that's Cultivate. If you talk about the Ohio Short Course and Cultivate, I built this business by relationships I formed at that show. So going to regional shows, going to national shows, getting involved are great ways for you to build those long-term relationships.
So I say it all the time that plant people aren't always people. In fact, a lot of times they're not. So, but you're both. Like, did this come naturally? Is this something you learned? Is this something that sort of innate in Mike Gooder from, were you like this in high school? Like, I mean, how like, what makes, what makes you in this way? Because not everybody is this way.
Yeah. Well, I was fortunate. My dad was a great entrepreneur.
Okay.
So I had a good educator. Again, he was never in plants, but he could sell anything. He loved relationships. I had some other great people in my life that were formative. I was lucky enough when I first bought the greenhouse. I don't know where I came up with the money, but I think it was $750 to do Dale Carnegie course. I love Dale Carnegie course. It taught me a lot. I've always been active in learning how to be a better leader. And I think actually, if you embrace leadership, it becomes easier. If you feel those parts of leadership that are fun, and you feel success, and you repeat those feelings, And I'm blessed. I mean, we have such an outstanding team of people here at Plantpeddler, and pretty much all locals, right?
Yeah.
But we're one big family. If you're going to spend most of your life with the people you work with, most of my waking hours are spent with people at Plantpeddler.
Yeah.
Then they should be my best friends,
That's
right?
true.
Because this is where I'm spending my time. And so building those relationships internally are as important as external. And then when people come externally to see you and everybody's getting along and joking and picking on the boss, they're very relaxed, and it's easier for them to understand, like, hey, these guys are fun. They've got a great attitude. And so, attitude breeds attitude. So positive feelings, positive attitude. I received an email from a customer this morning that was talking about his great experience he had with our customer service people.
Awesome.
That's the stuff you love to read.
Yeah. No, that's for sure. No, I appreciate that. And I think that's really good advice. And you mentioned leadership. I do think it's something that can be practiced. Like you said, I think it's something that you take on and you really work at. It's like anything. The more you work at it, the better you get at it. But let's talk a little bit about industry involvement. You mentioned early on that, you've been on the board of American Hort. I'm sure you've been on plenty of leadership boards, throughout the last 46 years. And, it is Cultivate Week. And I know that you've been super involved with that show and the event planning. And as long as I've been going to Cultivate, you've been presenting or involved in decision making. You guys have been exhibiting. And all this has really helped drive the industry forward. Talk a little bit about industry involvement. Like, think about if someone's listening to this who's new to the business or, moving into management in a greenhouse business of any shape or size. Why do you and Plantpeddler make the investments that you do with your time, your people and money into the leadership and sort of, governance of our industry?
Yeah, it's definitely a passion of mine. I believe in horticulture. I believe we have one of the most unique forms of agriculture. The things that we can do in our industry because of our size and our dynamic, really, really small investments of time and energy, and you bring up money, even limited money. Small investments into advocacy for the industry have huge results. And I spoke to this at Cultivate. It's probably one of my least attended sessions ever at Cultivate because everybody runs away from this subject matter, right? It's easy. Invite schools, invite politicians to your greenhouses, to your garden center, whatever, right? Show that you are involved in the industry, that you believe in horticulture, because for most of the people, and I've had a ton of politicians and elected officials and whoever's I can find to come through Plantpeddler that have no clue what we do. Yeah. They have no clue the economic impact of what we do. And so small inputs can have maximum impact on the outside. So that involvement for us has evolved through the years, but we've always been active in our community, within the state, within my university, Iowa State. I've been on the external advisory committee and fundraising for over 20 years. Probably, I hate to guess, I might be approaching 30 years that I've been involved with Iowa State on the horticultural side. Why? Because if I don't stay strong and keep our university strong in horticulture, what's the pathway for us? Yeah. It was a lot different when I was there because we had a lot of hort grads. I'm begging for hort grads now. We have a great industry and you should be a proponent of it. That's basically my feeling. And it doesn't matter where you step off at and where you step in. You can change people's opinion of what we do in this industry. And so for me, that's the culmination of a career for me these next years is how do I help build more awareness of what this great industry does and the people involved with it. We're really working hard now on a state level with our Iowa Secretary of Agriculture and Department of Ag and various associations within the state. We don't have a greenhouse association in Iowa. I'd love for us to get it going, but I'll do my best to make people more aware of in a corn, soybean, pig, and chicken state that we actually have horticulture here. Yeah. And that horticulture has a positive economic impact within the borders of my state. And we bring a lot of money into the state of Iowa and we create jobs. And there's a good story to tell. And it doesn't matter where you jump in and out of the story of this industry, the horticulture industry, the greenhouse industry, there's a good story to tell. We do some really great things. It's also important that we tell our story because we need a generational change. We need to attract more young people into And if they don't know our story, and if we're not proud of that story, why would you want to be involved with this industry? So we believe in horticulture. We believe in being dedicated to the success of this industry and continued growth of the industry. And whether that means time, talent, money, whatever it takes, that's the position of what Plantpeddler is here for.
I love it. I love it. That's very, very well said. And I have like a million more questions to ask you. I'm looking at the time. We're at 40 minutes. So we're gonna keep hammering away at a couple more. I really am thrilled that you took this time to sit down and have a conversation. I got a couple of sort of philosophical questions. And we just started touching on this a little bit just a couple minutes ago, but why do you love what you do? Like, you are always positive, and I know I don't probably see you when you're not, but you know, at the shows, you always have a smile. You're always, shaking hands and fired up and getting people excited. And when we were just preparing for this call a couple days ago, you were super psyched about new automation equipment that's going to be installed. You were like, yeah, there's going to be one at Cultivate that's coming to our greenhouse next. And it just seems like you never just sit back and relax, and you're always pushing forward. Like you said, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. But I guess my question is why?
Yeah. I love what I do. I wrote a project back for that same professor, Dr. Gladden, about building a propagation company in Northeast Iowa, growing begonias and geraniums and poinsettias. Guess what I do?
Yeah.
I mean, I grow geraniums and begonias and poinsettias, and I grow a lot of them. And I mean, I look where we were and I look at where we're at, what we've come from. The dynamics have changed in becoming a leading propagator and considered best at some of the things we do. I mean, how could you not be just jacked up? I get fired up in the morning and jump out of bed at 5 a.m. Why? Because I get to go to work today. I get to lead a company with my friends and have fun and create new opportunities and look challenge in the eye and take it on. And hopefully when I'm all done, successes and failures, if I'm 51% right and 49 wrong, and I mean, I won. All right. And
Yeah.
so, the challenges you face every day to keep the company growing and successful and profitable, ultimately, that's what I really am driven by. And I'm driven by the people in the industry. And I love customer calls. I had a call this morning with a FFA instructors having some struggles with pre-budded mumps. So I get to do a cultural call this morning.
Yeah.
Same time, I'm working on some more marketing plans for poinsettias and the Cultivate hat has been on, and I get to do an interview with my friend Bill. And so every day it's uniquely different than the day before, and it's going to be different tomorrow than it is. So what part of that is, not more fun than working on a factory line building widgets? I'll take
Yeah.
horticulture every day. And I love some of the stuff that we got going on from an automation standpoint and a facilities standpoint. And those that know me know I'm driven by the best infrastructure that we can possibly afford to build. I've taken lots of risk in my day. I've funded and figured out ways to finance a lot of critical projects that have helped build our growth. I think when we opened the Young Plant facility, there was something close to 20 world's first that we did in one facility on that build. And we've
Oh, wow.
continued to try to develop some of the world's first technological improvements. We'll have, as you mentioned, ISO units coming in, the generation 2 ISOs that'll come online. We just had a meeting on it yesterday, should be here online in November. We'll have 6 now ISOs. These are generation 2. They'll be the first 3 generation 2 ISOs to be deployed in the world. So, we continue to push the edge with technology. We've got a bunch of other new equipment that we've been investing in to further automate, build better products through automation, through technology. And whatever that technology looks like, we're willing to put that investment because we know that to produce ultimately the world's best crops, you need world-class facilities. That's our commitment at Plantpeddler, and it has been for as long as we've been able to do that. And that's some of the fun stuff, right? It's the ability to create a totally unique company, drive people to success, build these relationships. Yeah. And so that's the stuff that drives me. And I love the fact that it's great to come in every day and hang out and grow a company.
I love it. And it's infectious because like I'm fired up right now. I think that's so cool to hear.
It's like I told you, the only thing's a bummer, right? You get to the point when you really get it figured out and then you're supposed to retire. And everybody's like, when are you going to retire? I'm like, retire what? I mean, why would I retire from what I love to do? So,
well, I mean, I've been in a lot of greenhouses where the patriarch isn't retired. He just has a nicer golf cart. Like, so I think you'll be fine. You'll figure it out. And you probably have some other things that you want to do too, but I don't think you don't have to leave the greenhouse. No one's going to kick you out, I hope.
Well, my son said
Maybe
probably stretcher and ambulance, or was it a hearse? I can't remember if it was an ambulance or a hearse, but either way.
Oh, that's good. All right. Last question, the crystal ball question. What do the next 3 to 5 years look like for our industry? And I'm guarantee you've thought about this, so I'm expecting big things here.
I think we're, and you've seen this. If you follow Chris Beatty's newsletters, it's like, we have the obituary section almost every issue now. Mm-hmm. We're having a really important generational shift. I mean, I can talk about products. I can talk about some of the other challenges that I see. But I think one of the most important parts is that we talked a lot about the history of the industry going back to the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, right? That whole era of people are hitting that retirement age. They're aging out. And so whether you're talking about the MGMA, National Greenhouse Manufacturers Association, and the sales guys and the guys that build all the greenhouses and develop the technologies, whether you're talking about supply chain and breeding and developing and offshore, whether you're talking about greenhouse owners and operators and growers, retailers, we have a really important generational shift. In the next 3 to 5 years, there's going to be a lot of people that are aging out of the industry that we need to replace. And so finding, attracting, and inspiring a new generation to take over this industry is one of the most important steps that we really need to all be focused on, because that's the important swing. That generation will have a completely unique and new set of challenges that we all experience that are the generation retiring out. So I think it's super important that we attract, we retain, we embrace a new generation of grower. I think that it's going to be important. I just returned from flower trials and spent some time in Denmark and Germany with grower friends. I think it's important that we be diligent in watching government policy and regulation. I think it's really important when you look at what's going on in countries like Denmark, what's happening in Germany and other countries between policy and cost of energy and other factors. Horticulture, especially controlled environment agriculture, is under a lot of duress, a lot of attack. A lot of growers going on. So we, as a U.S. growing population, being involved with American Hort, especially the advocacy team in D.C., I think is very important for us, and to be active and involved at the state level in your own jurisdiction. I think that's really important. I think it's important that we stay relevant. There's a lot of competition for discretionary income. It's important that we stay relevant with our products, that we innovate and we continue to drive consumers to have success with our products. The products will be driven by the consumer. We need to help drive that consumer to us. And so I think the really important part the next 3 to 5 is like, how do we raise awareness of our products? So in a world of cell phones and AI and video and all the other challenges we have, let's make sure that people find their roots back in growing plants and enjoying flowers and vegetable gardening and horticulture and all the things that come from the beauty of what we create as an industry. I think those are an important piece. We will continue to grow if we invest in growth. And the industry needs to invest in people and our products to continue to grow this industry. We have great opportunity. I think we can continue to increase what we do and be more successful and profitable, but it's going to take everybody's effort to make sure we stay relevant and that we get new generation of people involved with horticulture.
Amen. I love it. That is an absolutely fantastic way to end. I think it's a call to action. It all has to do with relevance, from relevance in the products that we sell to the people we find and attract to the government policy that we can impact. I think that's awesome. And I really appreciate that you took the time to share those thoughts, because I think that if our listeners take some of that to heart, it's really good marching orders for us as an industry. But Mike, thank you so much. This has really been great. Where can folks go to find out more about Plantpeddler? And do you have any other closing thoughts or anything we missed? I never like to just wrap it up with that. Someone might still have something on their mind?
Well, let me mention, our website's fairly robust, plantpeddler.com. You can drop me an email if you have questions, MikeG@plantpeddler.com. But Plant Peddler website has lots of good information on our company and our things. What's coming up event-wise, I sure like to mention Variety Days. Variety Day is August 7th this year. We've got a really great lineup of presenters, including Dr. Raymond Cloyd's coming up from Kansas State.
Nice.
But we have over 1,500 varieties in the gardens, lots of sponsor support, trade show, lots of fun going on. And of course, the night before is Feast at the Farm. That's at my house, my farm. And that's on the evening of the 6th. We're having smoked brisket. So maybe Beatty's might be attracted to coming up since he's the barbecue guy. But we will have a lot of fun. Good band, everything else happening. That's on Thursday night and Friday, August 6th and August 7th. Hey, also, I have to mention, to me, one of the most important things, especially when I was starting out in this business, was trade publications. And of course, one of them, Vic Ball's Grower Talks, was when I slept beside me in the bed at night. We've been very fortunate for a small industry to have such great media outlets. And obviously, I'm very partial to Ball Publishing, Grower Talks magazine, because through the years, being able to read the articles, study the pictures, man, I tell people, like, get the trade pubs, look in people's side of people's greenhouses, because you can learn a lot just what's in the pictures. So I do want to thank Ball Publishing, Grower Talks for their investment in the industry, and obviously everybody on your team, Bill, I think the most of, for being a great outlet for our industry. So I want to thank you for this opportunity to talk to you today and do the podcast, and also just for everything that you guys have done to support horticulture for all these years.
Well, absolutely. And we always appreciate you answering our call and answering our emails as well. And we will hopefully be doing this for many, many more years. You're the first person who's ever said they opened the magazine to kind of sneak peeks and get intel on what's inside other people's greenhouses. I wonder how many people take that opportunity, because I know Chris takes a lot of pictures of a lot of high-tech stuff. That's pretty cool.
It's almost as good as being there.
That's awesome. That's good to hear. That's awesome. I guess that wraps it up, although I could honestly talk to you all day. Luckily, I'm going to see you in like a few days in Columbus, so we can keep talking.
Our booths are only a few booths apart. So
that's true. That is true.
People are walking the show. They can sure find both of us.
Heck yeah.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it very much. Have a great day.
You too. And I'm Bill Calkins with Tech on Demand on behalf of the entire Plant Peddler team and your friends at Ball Publishing. Thanks for listening and watching. Take care out there.